Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Honorable Dr. Colin McIntyre, Minister for Economic Development and Planning and Parliamentary Representative for the Roseau Valley constituency. It's very good to be here in Wotten Waven this evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit, Honorable Robbie Tong, Minister for Tourism, Honorable Miriam Blanchard, Minister for Public Works and Ports, Honorable Peter Seja, Honorable Dennis Charles, Nicholas Esprit, who is here with us, I want to recognize you. All the good people of Wotten Waven and the Roseau Valley, good evening. It is a pleasure for me to be here. It is a pleasure for me to be here. This area is one of the most popular areas in the Commonwealth of Dominica, and I want to recognize that. We have the great renowned spas in this area. Everybody in Dominica knows about places like Tia and Tikwe, Glosho, and Screws. And now we have new ones coming along like the Escape and the Sulphur River Tours. And I can tell you, anybody who mentions coming to Dominica as a tourist or anybody who have Dominicans who have lived abroad will always come here to Wotten Waven to enjoy your natural resources. And you are blessed, brothers and sisters. And that is why it is important, we see it as important to go around the country meeting you, meeting the people, interacting with you, hearing from you, hearing your ideas as we go to another budget, what it is we can do for you so that we will continue, so that we can continue to better your lives, ladies and gentlemen. We can continue to develop this country. We can continue with the little resources that we have to implement innovative ideas to ensure that all of us continue to enjoy a better standard of living in the Commonwealth of Dominica. And that is what we have been doing. Because never forget, the people who forget their history will be like a tree without roots, because your history is your root. That is upon which the foundation of our lives as individuals and of as a society, as a collective is built. And when we inherited the government of this country was on the brink of a precipice, brothers and sisters. That is where the United Workers' Party had brought this country. Let us not forget that. So now that God has blessed us and we are enjoying the blessings of God and the hard work of this government, we cannot forget where we were in 1999, brothers and sisters. We cannot forget that. We cannot forget when civil servants couldn't get their salaries at the end of the month. We can't forget. How can we forget that? We cannot forget when civil servants' contribution to the Dominica Social Security could not be paid. The treasury of Dominica was empty. The country was broke. And even as the country was broke, they continued with their recklessness. They went to Trinidad and they mortgaged the country at commercial rates, $100 million, which they knew they couldn't repay, at 14%. Today you have this government putting monies in the aid bank, brothers and sisters, for farmers and for people in tourism like you, at the lowest interest rate in the Caribbean, 3%. With grace periods, the farmers can now go to the aid bank and get their loan at 3% to expand their farms. Today more than ever, Dominican fresh produce is the most sought after commodity in the region. Everything we can plant now can be sold on the regional markets thanks to the work of the Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit and this Labour Party government, brothers and sisters. And when they tell you about the Citizenship by Investment program, this is not something Dr. Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit get up in his bed one Friday morning like a madman and implement. That is not so at all. This program, after bananas was on the decline in 1993, through no fault of anybody, the bigger banana producing countries took us to court, the World Trade Organization, and said that it was unfair for Dominica and Windward Island bananas to enter the European market at preferential treatment. Everybody had to go on the same terms and conditions. The WTO agreed, and we lost those preferential treatments. So Eugenia Charles, who was the prime minister at the time, came up with the novel idea to have the economic citizenship program. And that was the program she was going to use to build the Layu River Hotel, brothers and sisters. United Workers' Party was just formed, and they criticized the program. They went down to Layu and they were shouting across the bridge to the people developing the hotel, "Ching Chong, go home." That is what they were doing. And that is where that program started. When Eugenia Charles started the program, every potential applicant had to come down to Dominica for an interview. When Edison James became prime minister of the country, he decided no need to come down. Forget about coming. We will come up to you wherever you are and interview you. He made changes to the program. And he, as the prime minister, was not the minister of finance at the time. Yet, he had the access to the escrow account. It is this government under Honorable Roosevelt Skerrit who placed checks and balances on the system to the point where today no politician, including the prime minister, does not have access to the citizenship account, the escrow account. He has to apply to either the financial secretary or the manager of the institution who runs the institution, Ambassador Nantan, or the budget controller. The account is now managed by public servants, brothers and sisters. We have tightened up the program. We have international firms who do due diligence on every single applicant. A due diligence in ordinary terms like a police record. For you to go for a visa in Barbados, you have to go police headquarters and go by CID and get your police record. Every applicant has to go through a due diligence process. And the due diligence process is not controlled by the government of Dominica. It's not the prime minister or any member of cabinet doing the due diligence. It is international firms around the world, independent firms, that the client have to pay and foot the bill. And these international investigation firms do a due diligence on every applicant. Who was your mother? Who was your father? What school you went to? Who was your teacher? How many times you married? Where you lived? What job you had? Who you worked for? Who you employed? Every single situation is investigated. That envelope is sealed and it is sent not to the client but to the government of Dominica. And then the government opens that envelope. And if there is any adverse report on any potential applicant, that applicant is immediately denied from citizenship, brothers and sisters. Yes, some people may fall through the cracks. When United Workers' Party was in power, there was an Australian fugitive called Christopher Case. So no program in the world is foolproof, brothers and sisters. No program is foolproof. But we have the checks and balances in place to ensure, for the most part, that we are running a clean and credible program. And that is what they do not like, brothers and sisters. I mean, United Workers' Party has a reputation for tearing down everything good that has to come to Dominica. They were formed on that. That is their character. We would have had our international airport years ago. In 1989, when Eugenia Charles, the great hero of Dominica, were friends with the Americans for inviting them to rescue Grenada from the hands of the revolutionaries who had assassinated the prime minister and members of his cabinet in 1983 in Grenada. Eugenia Charles, as head of the OECS, asked the Americans to help Grenada out of its situation. As a result of that, Eugenia Charles, prime minister of Dominica, became friends with the Americans. And they said, what can we do for you? And the great Mamo said, our greatest need at this point is an international airport. The president of America said, no problem. We will send the Army Corps of Engineers here, just like how Dr. the Honorable Roosevelt carried got the Venezuelans to break the mountains, to expand our airport, and we have night landing. The Americans were prepared to come down to do the international airport. Edison Chenfield James. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not a joke, you know. Sapa Blagusav, ladies and gentlemen, that is history of Dominica. Wrote to the American government telling them, do not come to interfere in Dominica's internal affairs, because an election was pending in 1990. And if they come down now, it will look like that they are giving the Freedom Party an unfair advantage. And today, how many years later, my math's not so good, 20-something years later, it takes young Dr. Honorable Roosevelt's courage to give us an international airport, brothers and sisters. And it is because of the Citizenship by Investment program we are able to do that. So when Lennox Linton leaves Dominica, you live in your home, brothers and sisters. In every family, you have your little fights. You have your arguments. Brother and sister making noise. But we do not go outside and send stone inside the house. If your father died and leave a piece of property for you and your siblings, you cannot be so vexed that he didn't give you upstairs of the house. You live in downstairs. You burning down the house. Where you will live when you burn down the house? You live in and you go in quite America on one of the most popular internationally recognized shows, CBS, and you blackballing the country and saying we have passport on how we call it, mail order program, when you know that is not true. As a Dominican, what is your sense of patriotism? What is your sense of statesmanship? Okay, you cause the government to fall. You come, they tell you, come out, stop your demonstration at 3 o'clock in Roseau. You light fire in the street. You mash up people's businesses. Ordinary brothers and sisters like you and I who try to earn a living. When you mash up the country and you get into government, what it is you will have to govern when you get there, brothers and sisters. When you mash up the program, when you deprive people who are 70 years and older, people who have worked hard in this country, farmers who went to their gardens to feed their communities, fishermen, people who are midwives going around helping people in labor to make their babies. They used to call them nurse so-and-so and nurse so-and-so. People who had bakery baking bread for us to eat. Because they didn't work for government, they don't have a little pension. Today, out of the goodness of the heart of the Prime Minister and this government, we are giving them $300 so that they can live the rest of their life in pride and dignity, to buy a gill of oil, a pound of rice, a half-pound butter, for them to live in dignity, brothers and sisters. You against that? You against that? You calling them greedy, but your own Dominican fellow men? Which country you want to run? This is the same brothers and sisters you expect to go to the polls and endorse you as a leader in this country. But say, sot no sot kosa. I mean, come on, man, tell me. I mean, politics is politics. But there's a point beyond which you must not go, brothers and sisters. When we have people who have been at their home, the government send them to study. The government give them a scholarship, bring them back to Dominica, and they are job hunting, brothers and sisters. And the government says, while you are job hunting, you go to an interview, every employee telling you, I would have employed you, you know, but you do have experience. So the government came up with a plan to allow these people, no matter what your stage in life is, to gain some job experience through the National Employment Program. And while I'm at it, let me congratulate every single intern in the Roseau Valley, including Wotten Waven, for the great job that you continue to do under the National Employment Program. And I am not the Prime Minister of Dominica. I'm a lowly Minister of Trade and Employment. The Prime Minister is here to speak. But I can tell you, I feel certain that as long as this government is in power, the National Employment Program will continue, brothers and sisters. Rest assured. Rest assured. And no power that rise up against us will prevail. Because the people are with us, brothers and sisters. It is you who have put us there. And constitutionally, when election comes about in the next 5 years, it is you who will decide, based on the work that we have done for you, who will enjoy the preceding 5 years, brothers and sisters. I mean, look at the washroom program. Look at the washroom program. We have developed the washroom program. I was looking at the internet the other day, and in Jamaica now, they are starting to get rid of latrines in schools, not even in homes. The government implemented a program to eradicate pit latrines. And instead you come and support it. You will have more credibility, even if you don't support the government. But high share, did I blah? When something is good, say it is good. People will have more respect for you for that, brothers and sisters. And so, when they say we are not using the citizenship by investment funds in a correct way, I want to tell you that right now in Dominica, there are free hotels being constructed by virtue of the revenue generated from the citizenship by investment program. Look at 1 year and a half ago, Tropical Storm Erica hit us a blow. 95% of our GDP was wiped out. $1.2 billion in damage. Whole communities vanished before our very eyes. One of our best tourism properties was completely devastated. And thanks to this government, less than 2 years after the storm, Jungle Bay is being rebuilt to provide jobs, sustainable jobs for the people, brothers and sisters. I come from Portsmouth, and I can tell you I am not so old, but I am past my 40s. And for the longest while, even before I was born, late in the 1940s, every single person telling you that Portsmouth and the Cambridge area is the best area for tourism development. But nobody could do it. Several attempts have been made to develop that area, and all failed until Honorable Dr. Roosevelt Skerrit and this government came in. Now we have hotels being built in that area. We have a hotel, the Kapinski Hotel. These guys have chains of hotels around the world. Their marketing budget for their hotels is bigger than the tourism budget for Dominica. So whoever goes to any one of the Kapinski hotels around the world, in Africa, in Asia, or in Europe, will hear about the Kapinski Hotel in Dominica. And when they come to the hotel, they must come to Wotten Waven to visit the world-class spas that we have. And that is jobs and monies in your pocket, brothers and sisters. So, brothers and sisters, tonight, we are here to interact with you. We are here to share with you. We are here to clear up the misconceptions of the opposition and the detractors and the critics. They demonstrated in Roseau, and let me tell you something. You see that the Prime Minister is a special person there, because the Spirit of God doesn't dwell with man at all times here. You know, and it's not now those fellas provoking us, you know. They block us in Pegua in 2005. The Prime Minister said, turn the other cheek and pass the other way. They come and they burn down Roseau and innocent people's businesses in Roseau. They come again and they were demonstrating, tempting the police to retaliate in the House of Assembly, to improve and change the electoral laws to make it clearer, brothers and sisters. The law and all of the cases that have been held, the judges have said that provision of transportation to electors to go to vote in and of itself is not illegal. It is when you provide transportation with a fraudulent intent to convince the voter to vote for somebody who he otherwise would not have voted for had it not been for the provision of transportation. That is what it is. So what we try to do is to clarify the law. So right now, I want to tell the Prime Minister that If we have to provide transportation for people to come, tell them to come in their red shirts saying Labour, so we wouldn't have to run the risk of convincing anybody. We know it's Labour rights on the plane, Labour is coming home to vote, and let them come. With no fraudulent intent. We clear. When you come, show your card, say I'm going home to vote for Dr. Colin McIntyre. I want to ride on that plane. Simple as that, brother and sister. If they don't want to change the law, we're not changing the law. Forget about that. Forget about that, Mr. Prime Minister. Forget about changing the law. If it's hard-headed, they hard, and stupid, they're stupid. All we doing, we're trying to bring a voter ID card. So you will come with your ID card. You show your ID card, your national ID card, and you vote with your ID card. What is wrong with that? But you have Americans around the world and people, French people, the French government sending your ballot for you, no matter where you live. You can be in Timbuktu. American civil, some soldiers in Afghanistan getting their ballot posted to them wherever they will. Iraq, Afghanistan, wherever they are fighting war. So why do you want to deprive Dominicans from voting? Brothers and sisters, these are the issues we want to bring to you to clarify the issues. I do not want to stay too long tonight. I've just touched on some salient points to educate you, brothers and sisters. Stay focused and do not let the wolves lead you astray. Because when they take away your bread and cheese from you, they cannot give you crackers biscuit to eat. Thank you very much.